This episode is brought to you by Lash Boss Summit. Lash Boss Summit is 2 full days of education in Austin, Texas on April 26th and 27th. The lineup is incredible. There are so many talented and genuine people on stage, so you're going to walk away with a ton of lash artistry and business strategy after that weekend. Not only that, there is built-in networking opportunities so that you can make new friends and connections while you're here. Your ticket also includes breakfast and lunch on both days, and all of this could be under $500 if you use code LashBossRadio. Lash Boss Summit is regarded as being incredibly impactful but not overwhelming in the sense of it was designed to reduce anxiety and just be very warm and welcoming and just deliver a ton of value. The lineup, agenda, and tickets can all be found on lashbosssummit.com. I'd really like to see you there. I promise you it will be more than worth it. Enjoy this episode, and I hope to see you in April. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lash Boss Radio. I'm Shelby, your host, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Trina of Maven Artistry. I used to know her as the Lash Atelier.
We're old.
And I've known her for so long, and this is her second time being on the show, but first time in person. So I'm so excited to catch up with her, and we're going to dive into a lot of interesting topics today. So welcome to the show, Trina.
Thanks for having me. It's so fun to be in studio.
Yeah.
This is like a real legitimate thing,
right? I'm so glad you're on.
Thank you.
I want to start by saying first, you were like I think the first person on Instagram that I ever saw while I was in beauty school of not just doing, everyone, including myself, was doing like bad lighting, bad angles, just like gallery of eyeballs type of vibe. And you always had this like artistry and you had pops of color and it was just so nice, and you still have that, and I just have to recognize you for that and like give you credit because you have really, I think, changed the way people think of artistry and creativity in our industry specifically.
Thank you. Wow, that's huge. I didn't know what I was doing though. Like, to be honest with you, I feel like in the beginning of the industry there wasn't really a handbook or even really anyone to watch to get inspiration from or to figure out how I should do this or what Instagram should look like. Because when it first started, it was like you take a real weird filtered picture of your dog or your dinner. And it was just, I just kind of, and I still to this day create what makes me happy. And I feel like it's interesting because there's a lot of talk on serve your audience, do exactly what they want. And I feel like it's easier for me to create and to maintain a brand identity when I love what I'm creating. So I feel like that's kind of what I did from the beginning.
Yeah, I remember there was this post. This is like over a decade ago. I remember the post. Like it was
time gone.
I know. You made this post and it said something like, when you can't find it in the store, you just create it yourself. And it was like you painted with your brand colors at the time, like a little canvas for your studio. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. Yeah, my first studio, I'm sure I did because I'm making all kinds of stuff all the time. My first studio was inside of like a little tiny, it was literally like the size of a closet. And there wasn't really a lot of colorful artwork at the time. And I like really abstract stuff. So it doesn't surprise me, that I made something.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. You've always really incorporated your color into your feed. And then I remember when it changed to kind of, because I felt like at one time it was more like a periwinkle or something.
It started out kind of coral, I think. If you go way back, you got 20 minutes to scroll all the way back to the feed.
Okay, yes. And then eventually it's like more of like a rainbow, and I don't know, like it's very distinct, and it feels like every single post is very intentional and thought out and placed perfectly in each little square.
It's almost too much.
No, I love it.
Like it's almost like, okay, this is maybe a little contrived. I don't know. I've thought that sometimes because it's interesting to kind of think back, because for me, not a lot has changed in how I create content, at least the process of concept to execution. It's still very tedious for me, where I wish I could be able to just put it out there.
Mm.
Don't think so hard about it. Just make something that's a little bit more organic feeling in the moment. For whatever reason, I still really struggle to do that. So it's a lot of work.
I bet.
For me still.
How long does it take you for one post? Like how much work do you put into one post?
It really depends on the type of post. But one of the more recent posts this was a little while ago, but with the face shapes. I don't know if you remember that. It was a reel and it moved really quickly and the face shape would change.
No, I don't remember.
That took me an entire day, like 8 hours. I worked on it all day. And then it got maybe like 5 likes. No,
oh my gosh.
It happens sometimes where I'll work on something for a long time and I already kind of feel it like, oh, this probably isn't going to perform well because it's just a different type of content than what the algorithm likes, but I still will make it because I want it on my page. I want that content to be there for whoever comes across the page that's going to appreciate that type of information that's shared or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to create content just to please the algorithm.
I
never really have because I feel like it becomes really inauthentic when you do that. You're trying to serve something that isn't really true to your brand, or how you can incorporate it into your brand sometimes is still really difficult, I find.
So is that like right now is like the 6-second reels are trending with, a little bit of writing and it says read the caption. Is that what you mean?
That sort of thing, or even the way people speak. So I see a lot of reels where I feel like I'm being yelled at. I don't know if you feel that way. You watch it and they're speaking so fast. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of quick cuts too, like 1 second and it changes. I think doing that in moderation is fine. But for me, I'm just like, this is not how I don't like to consume content like that. I was thinking when you discussed wanting to talk about kind of Instagram, I was like, I need to bring up this girl. And I wish I could remember her name off the top of my head, but of course I can't. She's really big on TikTok. She's a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. I think she has 1 on the way. Mm-hmm. And all her videos are her preparing food for her family. But she speaks in such a monotone voice. It's almost as if she doesn't even want to be there. Mm-hmm. But I love it.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Just like,
it's a good thing.
This morning I asked my kids what they wanted for breakfast. And they said cereal. So I made them Captain Crunch, and she's literally making it from scratch. But that's how she speaks. Millions of followers.
Wow.
And it's interesting to see that, because then you feel like, okay, so I don't have to create this content that's just so fast paced. You can't even like read what's on the screen when it's showing up. You have to pause it. It feels like, this is just me, but sometimes I feel like content feels a little manipulative, like when you're consuming it. I don't know if you ever get that feeling where it's like, read the caption. Yeah. Read the caption. I'm like, oh my gosh, just put value in the content.
Yeah. Comment this and I'll DM you my guide of this. It's just, there's a lot of, it feels like you're always being sold to online all day long.
Yeah.
And I feel like it didn't really hit our industry until the last couple years, because I didn't feel this way as much as I do now. Yeah. I don't even like to get on the lash side of Instagram or TikTok. I like to stay on my personal, where I don't follow any lash people.
Same.
I'll follow I'll follow someone's personal page that I know from the industry, but not their lash page, because I'm like, I'm not looking at this right now, because all it is you're feeling sold to, and everyone's selling something. Which
I think is to be expected. Like, we all need to make a living. And since 2020, I'm like, where has the time gone? How is it 2024? You're telling me like 3-4 solid years gone? I've been thinking about this a lot, because I agree with you. I feel like there's always this push to sell, or I'm only sharing because then I'm going to wrap it up at the end by selling to you, which is a great way to do it. But you don't want to do that with every single piece of content you create. You need to serve, and serve for a long time too, to build that trust. So I kind of feel like with 2020, it has put just that experience. Obviously, people are dealing with trauma from that. And it has put a lot of people in a financial bind as well. You know, maybe they had to dip into their savings. They're just not in the same financial position as they were before the pandemic. So there's this little bit of, this is now my assessment, right? I could be off, but I feel like there's like an air of desperation. And like, I have to do this. I have to make money. Of course, we have bills that we have to pay. So I think that has played a big role in people constantly selling.
I think something has shifted where it's like, instead of us seeing our craft now, like taking clients and stuff as like, hey, this is how we're making that money, it's now we're turning towards a different audience of other lash artists, especially newer ones. And some of it feels authentic and some of it, not all of it, feels predatory. And I don't know about the master resale rights stuff. I'm sure there's some that are great, but do you have any thoughts about that? Like, as you're starting
how
to see
much time do you have?
Lots of it.
We have 30 minutes. No, I wouldn't say I know everything there is to know about master resale rights. I'm familiar with it. I've actually purchased one of the courses out of curiosity, and I'm really opinionated on the topic for sure. I see the need maybe for master resale rights within some industries and how it can benefit people. But in turn, like one of the courses is called Roadmap 3.0. Do you know any of the names of them?
Mm-mm.
The three, I think there's Simply Passive that comes to mind is the name of one. There's Digital Wealth Academy and Roadmap 3.0, which it was 2.0 until recently they updated it. And it's my understanding that Roadmap 3.0 was kind of the first really big digital marketing course. And then Simply Passive and Digital Wealth Academy kind of spun off of that. So they have similar content, but they added more modules. Again, I could be a little off, but I think that's pretty accurate. And they're selling a course that teaches you how to create digital products, which I think is great. Like, a one-stop shop, you can learn all you need to know about creating and selling digital products. I think that's great. But where I have an issue, how it's starting to infiltrate our industry, is people are starting to sell master resale rights to their online lash courses. And that disturbs me a little bit because I feel like anyone at that point, if you're not vetting them, can purchase an online lash course and turn around and sell it. And I feel like that just does a disservice to the person purchasing it, because if you didn't create the course, you don't maybe even understand the information that's inside. How are you going to serve your audience who's purchased from you? So there's already like a knock on your trust factor. Because if you can't answer the questions that they have from the course that they just bought from you, you no longer have that authority. And I feel like you're maybe not looked to for potential courses in the future. Like, you might not have a great experience if someone can assist you with the questions. So that's where I have a problem with master resale, is within our lash industry, when people are selling courses that are teaching you how to lash. If you're selling rights to a document or a consent form or something like that, I don't see a problem with it. But with someone coming into the industry, maybe they have a month experience, they buy resale rights to a training course, and now they're selling it. It's like, how can that person properly serve others if they don't have the skill set themselves? And one thing I'm like, I will take this to my grave. I really don't believe you should be teaching how to lash or lash courses online if you've never taught in person. And that is something I have very strong conviction in.
I agree with that. Yeah.
It's not really talked about a whole lot. I would love to start bringing up that conversation online. It will be a little bit of a touchy one, but I think it's really important. And it's not to discourage anyone from teaching. It's hopefully to encourage people to build a strong foundation with their own program from their own experience, because it's so much easier, as you know, to teach from your experience than just teach what I'm teaching you.
Right.
It's harder to refer back to scenarios in your life where you've encountered a tricky situation with a client or retention problems or whatever it might be, if you're just like, well, someone told me that this is how you do it.
Exactly.
And you're no longer the authority. And also, when you're reselling someone else's course, you don't have a unique selling proposition at that point anymore. So 50 people in the same city buy the same course as you. What's unique about your course? What needs to be unique is you as an educator and what you bring to the table. So I know some people, they don't maybe feel confident enough to create their own materials, but I do think the course itself that's teaching others, the theory portion of it, really needs to come from the artist that's selling the class. And that is something I will go to my grave. I believe that.
Yeah. I feel like I said this on a couple episodes, so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, you've said this so much.
Must be important.
But it feels as though if you were a new artist right now, it would be incredibly overwhelming to get on social media and see all of the stuff being sold at you.
Yeah.
And not knowing which one to purchase and who to train with and stuff. It's just, there's a lot of it. And the messaging, I feel like, has changed from, let me teach you this specific technique or style of lashing or how to edit your photos, Christina.
Yes.
Stuff like that, where it was like a specific thing, your face studies course. Things changed from you had to have something unique to be able to become an educator, it seemed. And then now it's like some educators, not all, are saying, you're wasting all your time lashing. What are you doing? You need to be selling digital products. You need to be creating passive income. Look at this stack of money that I am depositing into my bank right now. I made X amount this month. You can be doing this too. Just buy my course and that's what you should be doing. And I feel like I would feel, brand new to this industry, I would feel like, oh my gosh, I just got my license or certification in this and I shouldn't even be doing this. I should be just sitting at home making passive income and so much money.
Talk about the panic that would set in.
Yeah.
You're just starting out and you feel like you're already behind.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the marketing out there is, if you're sleeping on digital products, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
And I think I love digital products. Obviously, I sell them with the digital maps and all of that. I do think it's great income. I wouldn't necessarily call the process passive. There's nothing passive about creating the product. Even selling the product is not passive.
Right.
You have to keep up with your funnels and your flows and your emails. You have to sell. Selling is not passive. So unless you already have an audience that you've cultivated and, shared information with and kind of gain their trust, it's not going to sell overnight. It's not going to happen for someone with 100 followers who's just starting out. You might sell a few here and there, but you still have to put in countless hours to make all of your sales channels and everything flow efficiently. But I hate the marketing that's out there right now around passive income, because to me, it's not uplifting. It's almost like you're stupid if you're not doing this. It's not as encouraging, I feel like, as it could be. And then one of the things you've touched on it that really bothers me is you can't lash for longer than 2 or 3 years, or maybe max 5 years. If you're burnt out, and it's just this reinforcement of some of the challenges that we face as lash artists. And people who are truly passionate about lashing don't want to stop. I know artists who've been lashing for 10, 15 years and their bodies are fine. Number one, because they charge a good price so that they can go and get chiropractic care and take care of massages and their posture. They have a great bed, a great chair, everything they've invested in their craft. So they can lash longer. But the marketing of, you need to stop lashing, and then just think about this. You need to stop lashing because you're wasting your time. You're going to get burnt out. You need to sell digital products to other lash artists who are lashing. How does that make any sense? Why are you demonizing the act of being a lash artist, but yet you're creating products for people who are lash artists? It is so backwards to me. It makes no sense. And I think
And that's why it's predatory.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
They're just trying to grab everyone. And it doesn't seem, it just doesn't seem, like that mathematical equation doesn't make any sense, to be saying, don't be doing this all your life, but here's this, buy this.
And then sell to the people who were telling you not to do that career or that craft.
Right.
So it's not a sustainable model to strictly stop lashing and resell digital products to other lash artists if you're not going to be a creator that is supportive of the actual act of lashing.
Right.
So I just don't like that that's kind of the direction that it's moved in, of stop lashing, create digital products for other working lash artists, but you shouldn't be a working lash artist. And the other thing is, I don't think you have to be working full-time as a lash artist to create digital content, but you still need to be working on models. You still need to have your hands on people. You need to try new products. So if you're cutting that out completely and just focusing on digital, I feel like that's where you're going to be left behind, because you're going to have working lash artists with much better advice, technique, critique, assessment than you.
Oh, yeah. We've seen, you've been in the industry
12 years.
Yeah. So I feel like it's almost this thing of where we've seen different waves of the industry, and I don't know if you feel old sometimes, but like seeing like the younger lash artists, like they're really good really fast, and like it's very easy to just become well known on social media by doing really great work and knowing how to work your phone. And
this Gen Z is on another level.
Yeah. And they enjoy making social media, and I'm like, that is amazing. I don't enjoy it.
They grew up with a phone in their hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you and I were the last generation where we kind of were at that transition point where we didn't have cell phones as young people. I didn't have a cell phone until I was like a junior in high school. And the internet really wasn't that established. You didn't get on the internet to search for anything and everything you wanted. You certainly weren't watching videos or learning a whole lot there.
Yep.
So they definitely have an advantage for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that the younger generation of lash artists coming in, they have access to a lot more knowledge at their fingertips. We didn't have any of that. People wouldn't even share what adhesive they were using.
I know it.
Or where did you get those lashes? What lashes are you? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't. They would straight up just say, I'm sorry, I can't share that information with you. Or I don't share that information
not
with
wanting
you.
to share where they took a class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a lot more of a closed door kind of, you have to figure it out. But I do believe it's made us better problem solvers. I'm talking about us old people now that are in the industry. We have to figure it out. We have that mentality. I never relied on someone to give me all the answers. I figured it out. I asked questions, trial and error. I did my own things. You know, I really almost kind of went a little bit more intuitively of like, what do I feel like I could be missing in the industry, or what do I need or want just personally as a lash artist to be a better artist for my clients. And now you can get online and learn anything you want practically, even the stuff that's not accurate, which is also hard to filter through. And when you're a new lash artist, you don't really know what that is. One other thing I do think is really interesting is this concept of no gatekeeping. No gatekeeping, no gatekeeping. I find it fascinating because I do think it's great to serve your audience and give away valuable content, but I also think there's a craft that has taken a decade to hone that is worthy of payment. So just giving away everything for free, it can devalue your offering in the end. So that's like a trigger word for me sometimes when it's like, no gatekeeping. And I'm like, hey, it's great you're sharing all that information, but what's your long-term plan to sustain your business financially? So I find that fascinating that and you don't see more established artists doing that. We still share, we still give really valuable information, but I feel like it also, when you're trying to bring in either customers, students, clients, whatever it is that really value your service, there is a perception of perceived value. If I pay for this, it's going to be a better experience. And when you're getting paid, you should make it a better experience and give your all and, put everything into it. So it's interesting. There's definitely just a shift between this younger generation and an older generation.
Yes, and we're familiar with a lot of the like OGs in our industry and have seen
people wouldn't even know their names anymore.
I know, and we have seen them kind of.
Yeah,
I don't want to say it in a disrespectful way, but we've seen them go away.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that happens because maybe they got burnt out or whatever reasons they had, but like it's like this in between of like seeing this new age and this older version of the industry, and kind of it's a blend of the two is what I'm hearing you're saying is like, don't give away everything, don't keep it at this, but also don't deceive people and hone your craft and all of these things combined. You didn't immediately start training. I feel like you were an artist for a long time before that. And even when you did start training, you were pretty much just doing like classic volume, and then you had like your face studies course. Can you walk me through, because I remember like in like private conversations, you'd say stuff like, it's not like all unicorns and rainbows. What was it like, back then starting your career as an educator? Like how long did you take to put into your program and to make sure that it was like of value and all of that?
So I never taught classic lashes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No. I never taught classic. I never had a classic lash course. When I started lashing, I I swear it was like 3 months experience, maybe 6, but I think that's pushing it. When I learned volume from Irina Levchuk of Russia. She's one of the kind of OG Russian artists who brought Russian volume to the United States. I wasn't even supposed to be in that class because I didn't have enough experience. So I took that class, and that was always my focus on like, I mean, I'd only been classic lashing for a few months, and I just went full force straight into volume. So pretty much from the beginning of my career, I was Russian volume lashing. And it took me, I worked with clients for about 2.5 years. And then through Instagram, people were asking, can you train me? Do you have a course? And at the time, that wasn't even on my radar. I'm a girly with social anxiety. I don't like to be in front of crowds. Believe it or not, even all the things that I've done over the years, it's still kind of one of those things that is challenging for me. So it wasn't on my radar. And then it got inundated with so many messages like, please, I just want to learn from you. Like, you don't even have to, people were like, you don't even have to have a curriculum. But I'm the type of person, and hopefully it comes across in this interview of like, I think it's really important to always serve your best. Because you're making your mark. That's your legacy. So I spent about 9 months writing my first volume curriculum. It was like 100 and something page manual, fully, graphics, all the things. I still have it. And then from there, once that was done, and I really felt like, again, I didn't have someone telling me this is how you teach or this is how you should do something. I'd only taken a class from Irina at the time. So it was from my experience and what I learned with my clients. But it started just with that course, which was volume 1. It wasn't really even face studies at that point. I hadn't quite gotten there yet myself. Although in the back of my mind, when I was serving clients, I'm like, this isn't exactly what I thought it would look like. I always had those challenges of like, okay, I'm going to do a modified round. And it would come out looking round or vice versa. And I'm like, so that was always in the back of my mind. But it was more like volume basics. And I started teaching one-on-one courses, and then the demand just grew organically, which I think is just so beautiful. I feel like you don't get that so much anymore through Instagram. It seems like, at least that's the way I was marketing, was mainly through Instagram is how I built my business. And I feel like it's a lot harder to do that authentically now because we're feeling so pulled and forced to market in a certain way for the algorithm, which I hate, absolutely hate it. But yeah, it grew organically. And then
started traveling.
The rest is history. This is what I say in classes. I'm like, honestly, the rest is history. There's so many moving pieces and parts. But yeah, I've traveled the world and taught lashes.
You're one of, I don't feel like many people travel and teach anymore. But like I saw you were posting this morning, you're going to like Michigan and Oregon.
I'm getting back on
Canada.
the road.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I slowed down for a little while. Like 2020 obviously put the brakes on. No one could really go anywhere. Although I was still traveling when I could. I didn't let it stop me. And there were students that felt comfortable enough to do it. So we made it happen. But I've been traveling full-time as a lash artist since 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I believe it was 2018 or 19 was the busiest year that I had for classes. And it was like 70 flights. And I think that year I went to Brazil, Mexico, Canada. I was in Paris for the World Lash Championships, Russia for a competition there,
Wow.
Australia coast to coast. Like, I had a mental breakdown that year too. It was good times. It was a lot. But that's where I feel so passionately about the fact that I really think educators need to teach in person before you ever offer anything online. It's not to discourage anyone from teaching online, but it's like you're going to be such a better educator if you have been face-to-face with your students, because as much as I'm teaching my students, they have taught me so much about myself, about the way I communicate as an educator, even little tips and tricks I wouldn't have picked up on, which I think are amazing. And I feel like I can watch someone lash and immediately know how to correct something they're doing because I've seen it thousands of times from, all different levels of artists and all different methods around the world too. Like the way that American volume is so different than Russian volume, and popular styles in Europe are very different than popular styles here. So it's like you really have to try to get as much information and knowledge as you can. And I think it just makes you a better provider for people.
It makes somebody like
listening to this, I'm sure, very set that like if they bought a class with you, they like know that's money well spent. It's not up in the air. It's like you're a very established educator, and I'm sure like super sought after even now. You've trained thousands of people. Do you still teach any volume, or is it just face studies now?
So my most popular course over the years has been Volume Mastery, which I probably haven't always done the best job of explaining it, but I have my independent face studies course, which is a 1-day class, and it's the course you took. So it's styling and design like to the max.
It's amazing.
It's about customization and looking at lashes from a different perspective, which you can get a lot of criticism, right? Like, why is that necessary? That's going to take too much time. When you understand the principles of bespoke design and styling and how to correct for certain facial features or eye positions, things like that, it becomes second nature, just like anything else. So yes, initially it might take more time, but it's just like riding a bicycle, right? You learn how and you're good to go. So that course is on its own. And then I have a volume mastery course, which is the one that I've taught mostly with traveling. 1-day courses were taught in Texas occasionally. And then the mastery course includes that entire face studies curriculum, but it's 2 days with a bit more in-depth volume theory. We can go further into like the application, placement on the lash, our connection points, picking up adhesive, things like that. And then you get hands-on with a model on second day, and then business theory, which is so important too.
Yeah.
Like you can't get into a face studies class, and we touch on it briefly in face studies too, but there's only so much time. You can't get into a class like that and learn this new skill that is really going to elevate you as an artist, challenge you as well, and not have a good foundation in business, pricing your services, maintaining your clientele, managing expectations, having boundaries, things like that. So that's part of the Volume 2 class. But the whole face studies program is Volume 2 as well.
I also like, I know whenever I don't know if you were only on the show once, you might've been on it twice, but in this one time you were on it, we talked about, you have like these practice sheets and you have these petals and stuff that you created, and you sourced the foam from, literally you went to Asia.
Hong Kong, yeah.
And so I'd love to hear about your creations.
Sure.
And I'd also like to ask you what it's like.
Again, how much time do you have? There's so many random things.
Second part of the question is, how does it feel, or how do you navigate when it is taken?
Stolen.
Whenever
We
it
can
is
say
stolen.
it. When someone just rips you off.
Yeah.
Which happens. Okay, so the creations, what do you want to talk about first? There's so many.
I don't know
Or
if
just
people
wrap
know
it up in a
this,
bow?
but you invented like the tiles with the white mat. You called them the Lalo tiles.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Tell us about the petals, the practice
Sure.
sheets, all of it.
I want something that just doesn't reflect the glare, because I have sensitive eyes, light colored eyes. My prescription was changing every year slightly, and I was like, it's from lashing. I know it is. And now you're all going to notice on your tiles, if you're looking at them, that they're not anti-glare, is you're literally looking at the reflection of your light all day. And I was like, I really want to make a matte finish tile. I don't want any numbers, any lines. I don't want anything. I don't like being told what to do. I don't even want you telling me this is where my 8mm strip goes. I want to put it where I want to put it. Being completely opaque, matte finish with the extended lip on the side was another thing that I was like, I need to have that. Because I was, at the time, I don't anymore, but I was sitting for 3 or 4 hour Russian manicures. And I was like, I'll be damned if I'm going to break a nail trying to open a tile that doesn't have, the lid and the base were the same exact size on all the tiles on the market. And I was like, I just need a little bit of a lip to be able to get in there. But also something about the tile that was really important to me is the contours. I wanted curved, beveled edges on that lip. The tile itself has curved, beveled edges on the side and the corners because you're resting your hand on it. Mm-hmm. And that's something I would notice too. Initially I was using the tiles from like Home Depot, the ceramic tiles. And even those were still like a little uncomfortable. So just those little tweaks. I wouldn't have been able to make that tile without being a working lash artist, having worked with other products that just kind of didn't work perfectly for me. Mm-hmm. So that's how that tile came to be.
How long from you coming out with the tile to everyone now having, like, taken
Probably
it?
a couple years. Yeah.
Got it.
And it's one of those things early on in my career when I started making like the practice charts, when I would see, or even like, do you remember the little eyelashes that like had quote bubbles, like they were talking to each other and stuff? Anything that I would make, if someone took it or copied it, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt years ago a little bit more because it wasn't quite as understood of like copyright on the internet. People just thought, well, you shared it, so it's public domain, which is not the case. You own the copyright to anything you produce from the moment you produce it. So, and that goes for sharing it online as well. But I tell you, and I know we've had this conversation in our previous podcast that we did, it would eat me alive. I would get so upset. I would take it personally. I would feel, not great feelings about that person. Like, why would you do that? That's so shady. Like, make your own, like make your own stuff. Don't reshare mine. It wasn't resharing either. They would like blur the watermark, like they would deliberately modify the photo. But now it's one of those things where I don't feel like I have to take a different perspective because I don't feel like God is going to limit my ability to create something new. And while they're taking something I've already created in my life, I have 10 other things that I'm working on. So if I give my attention to that one piece that's been taken and all of my energy goes there, it's like building up and just this terrible feeling, then it's taking away from the other incredible things that I have in the works or even just in my mind, right? That maybe haven't come to life yet. So I think that's come with just age and maturity of like, I've already made this contribution and what's next? Does it feel good? It doesn't to see that. What feels worse is when someone that's close to you does it, right? And then they ghost you and you're like, wait, am I the bad guy? Like that happens too. It's happened over time. And I know I'm not the only person that has experienced that, but it's just one of those things where you either get so caught up with someone stealing and taking from you, and it is illegal and they shouldn't be doing it. And I fully support anyone that wants to pursue legal actions. And I have in some instances. But if you get so caught up in doing that, that you're not paying attention to these other gifts and blessings that you have and that you can bring to life and, contribute to the industry, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. But it's easy. It's definitely easy to feel that way.
So let's say somebody does want to, they're like, I love this product. I want to sell it.
Yeah.
You also, I've seen it. You do this with Untamed and I have approached you too about like,
and Lindy
stuff.
too. EBL has them as well.
Yes. Yeah. So how does that work? They approach you, they let you know they're interested. And then what happens from there?
So the tile, that's the initial steps, right? Like, I really love this tile, whatever it might be. The tile can be customized too. So you can change the color, the size, the shape. It could be a really skinny little rectangle. You could do really wide. So all of those things can be customized. And then it's more or less kind of like a wholesale order where you have to meet a certain minimum order quantity, obviously, when you're adding your logo to it. With Cheryl from Untamed and Lindy from EBL, oh my gosh, those two people are just incredible human beings and approached me and they were just so lovely and like the nicest things to say about why they wanted to do that, which I really do appreciate. And they also wanted to keep my logo on the tile, which was so cool. Like, I'm like, heck yes, I would love to do that. Let's go for it. So yeah, it's not that has to be the case, but it's just one of those things. It never hurts to ask, right?
Mm-hmm. You also have the practice worksheets, which are so good. And
those are so old.
They are.
Like,
and those got ripped off
so
real fast
long
too.
Ago. They did. Yeah. Which is to be expected. I don't want to say it's fine. And again, to go back to where I was mentally when I first created something like that or the tiles, it was just such a different state of mind.
Yeah.
But what I want to see is if something inspires someone, create something, whether it's similar or different, make it better. Don't make the same thing. And this goes back to the whole MRR thing and being able to white label products. It's like, if you're capable, make it better, make it different. It's going to help set you apart. That's your unique selling proposition. So you want to have something that is recognizable as your own, or you know what I mean? It's just what is special I know the answer to this, but I'm curious if the audience would think about like, what is special about, say we have 5 companies sitting in front of us and they all have I'm talking the exact same products. Maybe one has pink and one has blue and whatever, but they're the exact same products. What makes that company? What makes that company special or different from the 4 that are sitting next to it? It comes down to your relationships with people and then also your intention. That's what I believe. So while I think all that stuff's great, I just would love to see the industry innovate a little bit more. Just try something new. Yeah. It's easy for me to say because I have taken risks and they haven't always been successful. But then I also have been blessed enough to teach, which brought in a good amount of money, because innovating and bringing something new to an industry that hasn't existed before is very expensive.
Yep.
So it's easy to say you should, innovate and do this, but you also have to have capital to do that. Mm-hmm. And not everybody does.
Yeah. Or you could maybe approach a company and sell them your idea or something. And
I would love that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it can be done for sure.
So I have a question for someone listening who wants to become an educator. What advice do you have for them? Because it sounds like the students made you an educator in a way, or like
they definitely helped mold me into a better educator for sure.
Just like brought the demand out first before you're like, hey, I'm selling this. They're like, no, we need this from you. So let's just say someone's at the very beginning. People aren't asking them that yet. Where do they start?
Just like with products, the first thing is to figure out what's the problem. Like, do you have a solution to a problem that a lash artist has? That's probably the first place to start, because there's going to be a demand for that. I have a problem. You have the solution. I need what you have. So that's number one. The second thing is, unfortunately, for some, they're not going to like this answer. It's time. You need time with your craft to hone in on maybe something that's working for you that you haven't seen anyone else do before. Even if that's not the case, you need experience as a lash artist if you're going to make products for lash artists. That's like me thinking, oh, I've never welded before, but I could watch a class on welding and probably make a product to sell to a welder. But someone who's been welding, I don't know why I picked welding, but someone who's been welding for 10 years, their product's going to be far superior to mine. And even if I were to buy their product that they're selling and they give me the rights to resell it, I'm not going to be able to serve the people who bought that product because I don't have the knowledge, the true hands-on knowledge of what that course is selling. I can reference back to what the course said, but I can't give them my own experience. So it would just be figuring out what the problem is that you have a solution to. Really, even like taking notes on things while you're working, like, oh, this is kind of cool, or this is how I did it, or take a photo or something for reference. Because again, the thing that's going to set you apart as an educator is to have, your own unique curriculum that's true to you. That's not to discount anyone teaching for another company, because I think that's important too, for larger companies to have educators that believe in their mission and their course as well, which that typically happens organically, that lash artists would take that course. They love it. They want to become an educator. I think that's great. They have support of that company. That's all wonderful. But to really do it on your own, it's a process. And I don't feel like it's something that should really be rushed. So maybe trying to avoid consuming too much of that content that's like, make money fast, stop wasting your time, you're going to be left behind. No, you're going to create something really great and really magical that will sustain you for years and years. It's interesting with Maven because forever people are like, you have to be face forward on social media. And if you go back and you scroll on my page, you do not see my face. Mm-hmm. Very rarely am I on the camera. In stories, I'll show up more, but it's interesting because I don't believe that you have to be face forward, but I do think you need to bring value and you have to serve people first. And by doing that, it's going to help you understand what people need, what they want. You're able to still make a connection. And honestly, I feel like I can be more authentic when I'm not on the camera. Sometimes when the camera turns on, maybe this is like trauma from being in the industry for like, a lot of people don't know this, but I was like a little child star for a hot second. Did you know that?
Wait, it's like vaguely, like I feel like I vaguely remember that.
So I grew up in California, short story. Grew up in California and I did acting and modeling when I was young. And the memories that I have of doing that are like sitting under hot lights, waiting for call time, brushing my teeth in the car on the way to Los Angeles for, a call time or whatever. So anyways, that's just funny. I don't even know why I told you that.
I don't know if I knew that. Like it felt familiar when you said it, but then I'm like, I don't know about that maybe.
I was a member of the Screen Actors Guild for a little while as a child.
Oh my gosh.
When I was little, I was like, I'm in a book with Leonardo DiCaprio. You want to see? And I would like show my friends.
How cute.
Yeah, it was so funny. And the whole cast of Saved by the Bell is in there too. It's like a Screen Actors Guild book, right? So if a casting agent is looking for a certain look or type of actor, they would like flip through this book. It's like, yeah, and call you. But saying that, I feel like maybe that's traumatized me a little bit. So when I'm on camera, it's not always easy for it. Just to be fully honest, I feel like my voice changes a little bit. Like, hey guys, I don't like that. I'm not like a woo girl. I'm very like the girl that's cooking breakfast for her kids because they wanted cereal. Like, so it was easier for me to stay behind the camera and create really just valuable. That's why I love graphics too. There's a lot of like little animations and stuff on my page.
Do you ever use Canva or no?
No.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
I did recently get a Canva membership because people have asked me, how do I do this? And I'm using Photoshop. When I take pictures, it's Lightroom, Photoshop, InDesign to create like interactive PDFs, but most of it's done in Illustrator and Photoshop. I can't share how to do that in like a brief conversation, right? But yeah, so I have started to kind of fool around with Canva. It's so powerful. You can do so much on Canva. I'm like, wow, like the animation portion of it's really cool. But yeah, so the forward facing, that as a trainer, I do think it is helpful for people to know what you look like and how you speak and lead in a way too. So voiceovers are great. But I just think that almost what am I trying to say? That almost paralyzes people when they want to be an educator because they feel like I have to be on camera all the time. I have to be selling my courses on camera. So instead of actually getting on there and doing it, they don't. Yeah. And then they're like, well, I'll just buy someone else's course. But I feel like I hope one of the things as a legacy for me of Maven, like when I do decide to leave the industry, which someday I'm going to have to, right? Like a little old lady, is just that it was trying to just be as authentic as possible. And if that means not being on camera, you can still give so much and make an incredible living with like a faceless account if you have value to bring. So that's the thing. I would tell students to kind of wrap back around if you want to be an educator to really invest the time, but then also think about like what's true and authentic to you for your marketing, your selling, how you want to present to your students. There's a lot of introspection that probably has to happen.
Yeah.
Like sit with yourself, sit with your thoughts. You think about what other people are doing, but really think about how you want to do it differently, or maybe the things you like about what they're doing. Really, you got to spend time thinking about it and planning.
What do you do to like tap back in? Like, let's say, I don't know, like I don't see with somebody who like doom scrolls on social media. Do you?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Does that ever mess with your mind a little?
Yes.
How do you like get back to like your creativity zone?
I have to get off social media. So there's an app that I added to my phone recently, and I need to remember the name of it. But basically you can set up locks. You can set it up for any app that you have on your phone by like type. So I have basically, how do we describe it? It's an app where you can set a time period where it will lock you out of your apps. I wish I could remember what it's called. But I have it set up for like at night. So at 10 o'clock, it locks until like 9 a.m. And then I have a window from 9 and 10 where it's open. And then it locks again from 10 to 4, I think. You can access it, right? But you have to go to this app. You have to wait for like a countdown. So, I mean, you really got to want to get back in there. But that has helped a lot. And then something I've really figured out since 2020 when it comes back to like getting back to creativity, for creative people, it's not like you can create at any time of the day. It's not like you just wake up and you're creative. There's definitely certain hours of the day where I'm more creative and feel more inspired than others. And it's usually not like a 9 to 5 type schedule. So if I'm like doing nothing and feeling like it's the middle of the day, it's 2 o'clock and I haven't done anything, I don't lose sleep over it anymore. Like I'm not feeling worthless and I'm falling behind because I know I'll make up for it at 10 o'clock from 10 to 4 a.m. or whatever it is. And I've just allowed myself to have kind of a really weird random schedule.
I love that you said that.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. That is really cool.
You have to tap into the inspiration and creativity when it strikes. You can't be like trying to strike it because sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I think if you were to talk to, my mom was an artist she taught art for ages. She's an artist herself. And that's just one of those things where you get into this flow. And when you're in that flow, time stops, but you can't just like make that flow happen. Mm-hmm. It just kind of.
I think I've said this before. Like, I want to say we had a similar conversation to this because I remember saying that I think of this way with my cycle too, because there's certain times for a woman in the month that she's more productive or creative and less of those things too. And I learned that too, that like, oh my gosh, am I just like a piece of crap because I feel like not doing anything. And then there's times where it does strike and I'm like, whoa, I feel like I can do
unstoppable.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I feel the same. Like I've learned to just like, it'll come back.
Yeah.
You know? So I love that.
And it always does. Sometimes it might feel a little late. But yeah, it always does come back. Mm-hmm. It's just, honestly though, to acknowledge it is a blessing just to even get those creative ideas, because there are people that don't have that. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things, it's so easy for us to be like overly critical of ourselves as creative people, especially when you're spending a lot of time online, because you're like, it obviously looks like there's so much going on and everything's happening so quickly, where we don't really know if that one creator we're following is meeting all of their kind of goals, but it sure appears like they're meeting more of their goals than we are of ours. And I don't always think that's the case, but yeah, it's toxic. You have to stay off of social. It's like you have to develop a unique relationship with your social media of like, why are you even on there? Is it to serve? Is it to consume? Is it for inspiration? And you have to like pick up the phone with the intention of, this is why I'm on here in that moment. Otherwise, it just turns into doom scrolling.
Very easily.
And I definitely do that. And it's not good.
Yeah.
But it's usually not with lash related stuff. It's more with like photography, videography, like all the ancillary things that I really love to do that I haven't quite given them as much time to as I have lashes.
Yeah, my doom scrolling is not those things.
No.
That sounds really cool.
Is it lash related stuff?
No,
completely
it's
different.
Like Taylor Swift or like
just a lot people
cats, parenting.
But does it make you feel, how does it make you feel? Because that sounds like fun stuff.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like learning about parenting styles. I like learning about like psychology.
Yeah.
But all of those don't feel like skills that I could somehow use in my business too, like those do.
Maybe those like you're wasting time.
Yeah, it does feel like, oh man, like look at all the time that I've wasted. I feel like I don't know. And I feel like the Eras tour is always popping up on my stuff. And I'm like, I feel like I've seen this clip.
I'm not even a Taylor Swift like Swiftie. I mean, I can appreciate her talent, but it's everywhere.
It is everywhere.
It's like For You page, it's lashes and then Taylor and then lashes and Taylor and then random cooking and then, it's weird.
Okay, so before you go, I do want to ask you, because you're going to be speaking at Lash Boss Summit, can you talk a little bit about your presentation and also just your thoughts from last year going into this year?
Yeah. So my presentation this year is like kind of a little like play on what we did last year with introducing all the digital lash maps and the customization and being able to create visuals for clients and ourselves, which help as artists. But I wanted to go like a little deeper and kind of open up this world of face studies. So it's going to be like a face studies mini class, basically, in presentation form. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it yet because there's so much information that I'm like, I kind of have to figure out how to, because I want to touch on every little thing. So yeah, it's going to be, I've never done it before. I've never given like a little mini speech on face studies. So I'm excited, and I hope that the audience is looking forward to that as well.
Last year, I feel like was an interesting time for you when you came, and I remember you made like a connection with someone in the audience. It happened to be one of my students, and
it's so awesome.
It's So cute. Yeah. What did you think of last year? It was like the first year in person. I was like super nervous, but
I was so impressed by Lash Boss Summit last year. And that was your first year doing it, right? And you did an online, I was part of like an online thing too, right? Was that still under the Lash Boss Summit name?
It was Lash Boss Conference and I changed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I loved the conference because those being able to have time face to face and make personal connections is so important to me. And it's not to challenge or disregard any of the other conferences. But what I loved about yours is that it was like, it just felt more intimate. All the action was happening in one room. You weren't missing out on anything. There wasn't 3 or 4 different, speakers at a time in different rooms, which some people love that. You can really pick and choose. Maybe there's a topic you don't like, you can choose someone else. But for me, I just felt like it was the way that I like to interact with people. It was just nice to all be in the same space, taking breaks at the same time, going to dinner, once the conference is over. There wasn't like 3 different, it's just me and how I am. Some people probably want to go and party and, party hop and go from party to party. I really enjoyed and it wasn't small by any means when I say that. It was still like a really great grand conference, but it just felt more intimate, which was helpful for me in like how I like to interact with people. Because I would much rather sit down and have coffee with someone and like dive deep and talk about, traumas being a child star or, relationship stuff versus going out to a bar and making small talk. Like it pains me to have small talk. And I didn't experience any of that at the conference. It was just like really got to know a handful of people. And it was a weird time for me. So I'm looking forward to this year being better.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this year. I feel like, again, I feel like all of the speakers are really talented and also very genuine and just hearty, wholesome people that like to connect.
Yeah, very engaging.
Yes.
Yeah, and in tune.
No like big egos or people that are like, well, my talk's over, I'm leaving type of thing. It was more like they hung around, everyone was able to approach you all and conversate. And my favorite time was like at the end of the summit, I ended up being in the lobby with a few people just like leggings on, cross-legged on the floor. And we're just all talking until they kicked us out basically. And you don't get that over social media like you do at a thing like this. So
it definitely had more laid back vibe, come as you are kind of thing, which is so nice, especially for people that maybe feel a little more uncomfortable in large groups, which I still do even to this day in my experience in life and all that for whatever reason. So it's just easier to, it just felt a little more personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for driving all the way to Austin and sharing everything with us today on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad it was an easy drive. I didn't have to catch a flight.
Yeah, and I'll see you in like a month for the summit.
Can't wait.
And thank you for listening today. I'll be back next Tuesday with the next episode.